Hello and welcome to Wilson's World Afcon Daily, episode 17. I'm back in Rabat, and I thought what we'd do today is we'd look ahead to the first two semi-finals. That's Friday's two games, Mali against Senegal in Tangier and Morocco against Cameroon here in Rabat. The quarterfinals, as we were saying last time, it's an extremely high-powered lineup. There hasn't been much drama in the sense of shocks so far. The payoff, you hope, is going to come in this last eight. It's the first time ever that all of the last eight are in the top 10 African teams in the FIFA World Rankings. So if that means anything, hopefully we do get some classic games. Because so far, I don't want to say it's been a drab tournament, that's a bit unfair. Some of the football has been very good, but there hasn't been any real shock moment, anything you'll really remember for years to come. I think in some ways Morocco are the most interesting of the four sides playing on Friday. They're the hosts, they're the favourites. They got to the World Cup semi-finals, of course, in 2022 in Qatar. I think they're probably the best side in Africa. It's not just home advantage that makes people favour them. And yet, despite all that, there is a lot of pressure on the team as a whole, and I think you've seen that in some of their performances, but also, and more particularly, on the coach, Walid Regragui. Now, he, of course, was the coach who took them to that semi-final in Qatar. And you might think he'd be a national hero, but when his face came on the big screen before the last 16 game against Tanzania, he was booed at the Moulay Abdellah Stadium. And that just seems, as an outsider, that seems a really weird position for the local fans to have. I mean, they've only lost 4 of the 46 games he's been in charge of. And if you go through those 4, one of them was the World Cup semi-final against France, which, they were massive underdogs. One of them was a third-place playoff against Croatia, which they were underdogs and also really who cares. And one of them was a dead rubber in qualifying against South Africa. So there's only really one defeat that they've suffered under Regragui where you wouldn't say they're a massive underdog and in a game that mattered, which was also against South Africa. So I that seems very odd. But I think what's happened, you're talking to people here trying to work it out, there's a sense that Regragui has become the face of the establishment, of the football establishment, if you like. There's a lot of frustration about the amount of spending on football projects and related infrastructure, obviously building to the 2030 World Cup. And there were protests before the tournament, which were repressed pretty efficiently, shall we say, ruthlessly. And that disquiet, that unease with that spending has only been heightened. There was flooding in Safi. It killed 37 people. And people have sort of asked, well, maybe the priorities are wrong. Maybe flood defences would have been a better way of investing that money. And so I think it's partly that's led to the dissatisfaction. And then allied to that is the sense that Regragui's football is quite pragmatic, it's quite dull. And so there's almost says, well, we're paying all this money and the football's not even very watchable. So it may be effective, but people want a bit more pizzazz. And I think that's been heightened as well by the fact that people recognise this as a very good, young, attacking generation of Moroccan talent. And we saw that at the Arab Cup back in December, where Morocco won that, not under Regragui, but under Tariq Sektoui, who is now sort of lurking there in the background. He's another coach with the Moroccan Football Federation. He's lurking there as a potential successor. He's very popular. And the football they played in the Arab Cup with what was effectively a B team was much easier on the eye than what they've been playing in this tournament. Of course, it's one thing to do it in the Arab Cup when you're not even the main coach. Doing that when there is all this pressure, when you have this expectation, it's not just being hosts, it's the fact Morocco haven't won this tournament for 50 years. The last time they won it was 1976. And for a nation that I think has emerged as the leading power, if you combine not just ability but also footballing infrastructure, the fact they're hosting 3 successive Women's Cups of Nations, they've really made themselves the hosting centre of Africa. It's a little bit like what Viktor Orban's done in Hungary, I think, in terms of that investment in infrastructure. So yeah, it's Regragui's become the sort of face of a sort of and establishing that people have lost a bit of patience with. Now, whether Cameroon can take advantage, that's what we'll find out. I don't think it was as good as Morocco, but they came here with almost no expectations. We've talked about the chaos of their build-up, with 2 teams being submitted to CAF, 2 different coaches. But since they've got here, they have been a really tight unit. They've played very coherent, very direct football. Brian Mbermo's been at the heart of it. He's been excellent. And Cameroon also have this remarkable history of eliminating hosts. Admittedly, not recently, but their record against hosts, I think they're unbeaten against hosts in the last 6 meetings. Let's say that's a run that stretches mid-80s up to 2000. Their record against Morocco is also good. They've never lost to them in 3 meetings at Cup of Nations. Weirdly, they haven't actually played them since 1992, which seems almost unbelievable. The most famous of their meetings, of course, that game in 1988, the semi-final, which was settled by Cyril Makanaki's long-range goal, which it feels like I've seen about 100 times over the last 2 or 3 days on Moroccan TV. I think the key to this game really is, A, can Morocco hold out against that directness? Is that going to rattle them? Because I think they are a team who could be rattled, particularly in that stadium. And can Achraf Hakimi get forward? I think his role is essential in terms of releasing Brahim Diaz, who's already scored 4 goals in the tournament. And I think if Morocco were to win the tournament, maybe not even have to win it, I think he's a very good candidate to be player of the tournament. The other game earlier in the day played up in Tangier, Senegal against Mali. Senegal have played all their games in Tangier, which may be an advantage. I'm not sure how much that counts. Senegal and Mali, of course, right next door to each other, very close relationship, very close history. They were part of the same country in 1959, part of what was called the Mali Federation, as they were moving towards independence from France. That lasted only a couple of months before it split apart. I think Senegal, they're obviously the very good side. I think probably the best of the sub-Saharan African teams at this tournament. But I'm not sure the balance of the midfield is quite right. The last round, they had Idrissa Gueye, Pape Gueye and Habib Diarra in midfield against Sudan. And you'd think that was quite well balanced. They left out Iliman Ndiaye to give them a bit more solidity, a bit more structure there. And yet, particularly in the first half, they kept getting caught in possession. They kept getting exposed on the their left. The left back Jacobs really had a pretty difficult first half against Sudan. They did seem to have sorted out the second half, but that is a potential area that Mali could exploit. Mali themselves, I think they're almost pinching themselves. They got this far. I mean, they haven't won a game yet, 4 draws, but this is a very stubborn, solid side under Tom Saintfiet. And I think if Senegal aren't quite at it, they absolutely can take advantage. So Senegal are the favourites today. You'd have to say probably Morocco just about favourites against Cameroon, but that's a much tighter game. But yeah, a lot to look forward to on Friday. So do enjoy those games, and I'll be back tomorrow to look forward to Saturday's pair of quarterfinals. So see you then.